So, now we have a talk by a representative of Ravenpack, which is one of our sponsors, and we very much appreciate the sponsors because they make ELS, what is this, ELS? Possible? Yes. This is Fermin, who is going to talk about a common Lisp implementation of Emacs. Okay.
So, hello everyone, my name is Fermin. So I don't think too many of you know me, but I work at Ravenpack as a common Lisp engineer. The talk is not directly related to Ravenpack, so I'm going to give a quick introduction of what we do in Ravenpack. So we are a company that takes text and tries to understand it to provide some value to our customer. Basically, have our entire engine is written in common Lisp using Allegro. All this is an advertisement. We're hiring. So if you like a challenge, you like common Lisp, we'll look for some people. You can go there. I can give you, and probably our HR team can give you more information than I can do. So yeah, if you're interested, you can go there. We've been sponsoring this event for quite some years now. So if you like it, you can go there. Keep in mind, again, my talk is not related to Ravenpack, so don't look at the code and think of Ravenpack, please. So first of all, the question is, what is CEDAR? So to understand that, we have to first go back a little bit. So CEDAR basically is a fork of Lisp, which was developed by Sabets from 2005 to 2007, and found it in an old forgotten Git repository. So because I was looking for an Emacs editor that was written in common Lisp. I will talk about other alternatives later that we all know. But this one has an interesting approach that I really found pretty interesting, is that it aims to be 100%, more or less, let's say that, Emacs API compatible. What this means is that you should plug any Emacs Lisp code in it, and it will run it. This is in the ideal world, right? And the project was half-baked, as a lot of projects out there. So I took it, I changed some things, and now mostly works, say that. So no more C. Yeah, that was one of my main points to do. Emacs is 80, I will say 80, 90% Emacs Lisp. But as some people in the room knows, there's a percentage of C, mainly for performance reasons. So Emacs is hackable, yes. Full hackable, no. So I want a Lisp to have this kind of a common Lisp is a really good hackable language, as we all know. So another reason is like a new Emacs, and referring specifically, as we all know, if we're dealing with it, have a few problems. So I want to do a quick, I want to say a couple of controversial things. First, how many of you use Emacs? Okay. How many of you have written Emacs Lisp? How many of you prefer Emacs Lisp instead of common Lisp? Ah. But I know why. Okay, so we can see a pattern here, right? So why is this Emacs Lisp not, even though we all use it, this is a fiber editor. So I think some of these problems are why we prefer common Lisp for other things that not Emacs itself. So we know Emacs Lisp is a good Lisp, but it's not a general purpose programming language. You can use it in that way, but it's all attached to Emacs, to buffers, to editing things. So other thing is not the fastest Lisp. It's a nice way to put it. Let's keep it that way. The limited concurrency problem that I know the native compilation want to solve in the future, maybe, but now it's it's shared threads, as far as I know. And yeah, again, the C problem, that the code is written in C, so I cannot hack it that easily. And the lack of namespaces, which, well, we have namespaces, but force man's namespaces to put the prefix of the,
I'll say later on there's a edition called shorthand where you can more or less say some namespaces.
Yeah, and I know and there were some attempts to fix it, but
no, but now it's really in the.
Now it's in the.
Yes.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay, well maybe I had to remove it from the list. Okay. So I'm
very good.
So I'm not the first one thinking of this, of course. We have Robertson here, so he wrote Climax and Second Climax, and also LEM, which is one of the most interesting projects out there, which aims to be, and it is right now, a pretty good Common Lisp editor. And Second Climax will be the best when it's finished, probably. So until then, I have some interesting things to say. So the thing of those editors, they're great, as they are regard, but they lack some things. So why GNU Emacs won the Emacs, we'll say, world, right? It's not, why is the best? Because of the best, because of the, so the thing is because of the extensibility of it. So a lot of people used it back in the day, and there were a lot of packages that were included in it. So it's like a lot of code that is used, so why would I rewrite this in a similar way if I already have it? So this kind of so it's a great advantage. But I think the killer feature of Emacs, as today, is this. More than 5,000 packages in Melpa. Maybe we don't care that much because we use, well, the Common Lisp developer uses Sly, and well, we're happy with that. But there are more people out there that use other languages. Not that nice, but, and you have packages for almost everything imaginable. So if I want to sell you an editor, and you don't have OR mode or Magit on LSP mode, and it's just slightly faster or slightly, why would we use that instead of Emacs? I think that's one of the main reasons why LEM now take all the Common Lisp community with it, right? Because of the, I wouldn't have to use, so I cannot use any of that. And that's, let's face it, that's pretty good. Emacs has pretty good packages. And the community is also, I think, bigger than the Common Lisp one or other Lisp for that matter. So for these projects, I also have to face some challenges, aside from make it run and all the old code. One of them is like GNU Emacs has a pretty extensive API, so there's a lot of things that you have to make into account. To keep in mind that I want to do a clone of input-output, and the behavior should be really similar, at least supposed to be. So you have to take into account something like this. So the global space problem that a lot of packages still uses have a lot of function that alter the behavior inside other function, and they change global variables all the time. So imagine to having a consistent behavior, you have to take into account all the states moving around in this. This is, for example, from drawbacks, package that's changing initially all the global variables, and this is put in some places to initialize, and then they change it. So just a dumb example to show this, like you have to deal with this kind of a state, and it may be a problem if you want to mimic some things. Yeah, again, thousands of line or Emacs list code. Imagine if you had to rewrite this by hand. This is just not. You cannot keep with it if you want to have it in other editors. It's just not possible to replicate. So imagine if I had to rewrite Magit, rewrite OR mode, all in common, that's just one person or 10 persons. It's just not possible. And you have to keep the changes. This is just unreal. So, yeah, well, the thing for this project that the first was quite annoying was the debugging. Sabets use a format to basically pipe all the errors to a file if something breaks. We can see a problem here. This is not the best, but luckily I will show how they solve it, which is using the MC Clear debugger. Was already shown, by the way. So I'm going to do a demo. I hope it goes well. I don't know, so let's see. We'll see in action and what it does. And we'll see all the similarities. Before that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the technology behind it. So I'm using Kratom for the earn courses. It's basically CLOS, I'll say Cloud, but wrapper. I will say a standard buffer gap implementation. So the implementation that was in Lisp was okay-ish. I mean, I don't want to criticize that much, but can be improved. And I think Robert Strand did a great job doing a protocol implementation called Cluffer. You can go to a talk, I think it was 2016, if I'm not wrong, He talked about it extensively. And I implement a work in progress in my editor. So I'm using the... It's a little bit tricky because Emacs, the understanding of the point in Emacs is different. What Clough understands what a point is, the reference. It only has one frame. I'm not interested in implement more than one frame. I don't use it that much in my own Emacs, but I only works in SBCL. Lisp should work on Mobits and in Lisp, but CEDAR only works in SBCL. I think it's mainly because of Croatoan only work in SBCL. I didn't look up it too much, but it's alpha quality a lot. I mean, it will break a lot, and I will show how to use the MC-Clean tool for debugging, so you'll never break it that much, I think. Okay, so this is the idea. Let's see how to save the princess in Lisp. So you put a lot of parentheses, and then you get a princess. So let's see if this goes in. Okay. So let's go here. So I'm going to first run it. So let's run it first from the executable that doesn't have. Okay, this is dump image from SBCL. We can see a lot of similarities here from Emacs. So let's try to break it. I don't have direct, so let's break it. Oh, nice. What are we going to do with this? Nothing. It's not interactive. This is one of the problems that Savage tried to solve with the format, but it was quite a nightmare when you have other things. So let's go with the version that should have debugger with it. We'll take a little bit. Okay. So let's break it, literally. There we have it. So we'll trigger the MC-Clean debugger, and we can see, well, we know how this works. It will show all the good things of this debugger. I'm going to say, okay, just abort the command and continue with your life. And we'll continue here. Okay. So let's see some of the, so as we can see, this is pretty similar to Emacs. I mean, that's the end goal. So with the, well, we also have meta X. Doctor used to work, now it doesn't. Same with Hanoi, but we can trigger and see what happens. I know what goes to happen, but nice. So, so we can see here that, and it frees completely the interface. Okay, so let's go to check some of the more interesting ways that we can use. So let's go to document, ls. So read completion is implemented. Let's go to one of the files. So we can see in the top how forward expression, oh great, don't have the arrows. The forward expression is implemented. This is in Common Lisp. We can see an interesting feature of Emacs Lisp is that I have to wrap the second part with prong. What Emacs does with if, the Emacs Lisp if everything else, so true and everything else is, which is interesting. There's already a wrapper around this, which is it's an if in the Emacs Lisp package. But so one of the cool things that we are in Common Lisp, we can evaluate things. So I can do like within Emacs. Okay, the mode in the bottom is fundamental, so I have to go to Lisp. I don't have automatically way to check the major mode, but we've got the Lisp interactive mode, and I can evaluate it. So this is the buffer list now, right? But this is not pretty useful because we have buffer objects, so whatever, right? So we can use inspect object. We can put buffer list. Okay, and then we have Clouseau. So for debugging purpose, this is great because we can now inspect. So this is all the buffer. Now, if you're familiar with Emacs, you will recognize the scratch buffer. We can check there. So this is the structure for the buffer object, how it's done. The major mode, check it out. So it's similar to how it's written in Emacs. You have a syntax table, you have a key map. So try to mimic all the interesting things that Emacs have. So let's close this, and you can continue. So the workflow always goes around. You can also define commands. So I also implement, okay. I don't know, say hello. I implement it this way. And hello. And this should, oh, great. That shouldn't be that way. Well, luckily, if there's something goes wrong, I can always, okay. Okay, I can say hello. Right. So we can see it's pretty similar how interactive it is with Emacs in the way that you can define commands, so similar way. And in fact, the code from the Lisp mode is really similar. So there's a comparison. So the one in the bottom, I think, yeah, it's from Emacs, and the one in the top is from CEDAR. You see some difference? Except from the prong, there's no difference. So this is the goal of CEDAR, this kind of transparency for the internal, for the Lisp packages. So what we're going to do in the future, we'll talk about later, but is to do this for all the major modes that are in Melpa, and then use it for some other packages related to Emacs. So this is the goal. This is transparency. You will see. In fact, if you show that in the top for a Emacs developer, you will just understand it, right? So it's like Emacs in that way. Okay. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of the roadmap. What I want to accomplish. So this project is in pre-alpha. You can use it to edit source code. It's an editor now with some interactivity, but also the stability needs to improve. I just broke it without doing just go to the end of the line. The font lock is halfway there. Some things. Yeah, I want to finish the Emacs API. So if we go to the source code of CEDAR, so you go to the core, many of you will recognize the name of those files because they're the same as the C in Emacs. So that's the goal, right? To have like this mimic thing. But it's not finished because remember, the Savets wrote a lot of those in 2005, 2007. So Emacs has changed a little bit. Not as much, luckily. But and so also my idea is to change the front end. Not a big fan of encurses. I like to have an interface. MC Clean, I think, well, Clean, I will say MC Clean. But it's pretty good to that. So I will use and I know that Robert Strand already did a good job in the second Climax to have some really good interface. So yeah, I want to finish the Lisp mode, which is halfway there. Well, halfway. A lot of function works. There's this link or swank of mine, probably think to let people you can use it for using common Lisp. That's a good. Luckily for me, it's link or swank already give me a lot of good things for free, basically. So the distant future, this will be. So I want to translate most of the Emacs Lisp package in Emacs itself. I don't want a lot of packages. I don't care really. For example, mail things, and today mail they use HTML. We know that Emacs is not that well with HTML, so I don't like that much. Yeah, that's kind of thing. Or I don't want to support MS-DOS or Next, so I'm not interested in any of those. I want to have this incompatibility. This means all the major modes that should behave in a similar way. You know, syntax log, some key maps. You know, the standard way. So you can use all those. And all the implementation support. I guess this shouldn't be hard at all because the CRUD one is the only thing that can be back from using from CLisp or from ECL. So this should be quite straightforward. When I change the interface, right? Let's talk about Dreamland. So given that I want this editor to be used for lots of another Lisp people, I think that's why Emacs Lisp is also pretty used out there. It's not it's an old Lisp that is in the middle, so it's for an editor. Yeah.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. So yeah, I'm finishing. Okay, so for iShip scheme, for people who don't know, it's a scheme implementation work in progress. So if I can hook that, you can write extension of CEDAR in scheme, closure with ABCL, and hide with Py4CL. So you can write things in Python. I know why you do that, but yeah, ordering high. So yeah, that's the dreamland thing I have to reach at some point. And that's it.
Thanks, Fermin. Do we have any questions?
Yes, I guess. Yeah, to move.
I can speak loud, I guess.
No, because the
But for
remote
the-
people have to have the...
Oh, right. Well, I don't have any questions, actually. The main thing is that it's pronounced McClim after Mike McDonald, who was the first person to start the implementation. So it's to honor him that we call it McClim.
Okay.
And I have a funny story, actually, about why Emacs turned out the way it is. When probably half of the people here have already heard it. When Stallman announced GNU Emacs, I think in 1984, I was one of the receivers of his email. And I answered him and I said, that's not the way to do it. What you should do is to write first a Lisp implementation, a real Lisp implementation, and then write Emacs in that. And he answered me immediately and said, I think literally, sounds good. Let me know when you have implemented it.
I know that the Stallman didn't like too much the common Lisp, so that's why we didn't bother.
Another question here.
Well, first of all, congratulations on this project that I'm embarrassed not to know about before your talk. I think it's very promising. I have a couple of questions at least. They're not very long. What are your thoughts on R Emacs, another project that I don't know much about, which aims to replace the C core of Emacs with Rust code and still, presumably, load all the Emacs Lisp code, so make a functional Emacs where the core is not in Common Lisp, but in Rust. And do you know anything about that approach, and is it feasible for, instead of Rust, using Common Lisp, obviously? And the other question is about, like, it's more of a comment about the drawbacks of Lisp. I agree with most of them. But I still want to comment that the concurrency, lack of true concurrency is not something completely foreign in nowadays very popular language. For example, JavaScript, as you know, uses also doesn't have in itself, is also evented, just like in Emacs. So there's no true concurrency. There's only events. So it's a design decision. You may say you can get concurrency if you use external processes and stuff. Maybe it's not that elegant, but it works in most applications, and you can write a continuation system just like JavaScript has with this async await. If you wanted to, you can write that as a library. And that's it. I can't remember the other one. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Anyway.
So the first question, so about I know the R Emacs, the Rust Emacs project. I don't know how it is right now, but I think the last year they didn't advance it, so the project is not that advanced today. And I don't think that replacing C with Rust. Now, I don't think any big advantage in interactivity in that. That's the one thing.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I think if the approach they're using could not be translated.
Huh? Yeah. So he's asking about what I think about the R Emacs, which is the Emacs written C part of Emacs written in Rust. My answer was that the interactivity of Rust is not the one that is in Common Lisp. And I think we have to keep the tradition of having this Lisp core and everything. I see a lot of advantage having only one language. For example, the NeoVim editor uses Lua and Vim script, and having more than one language that can be a little bit. So that's why I think more than one Lisp it's okay. Modern one, other languages can be a little bit fragment the community.
But your end goal is to have the eList file, the large ecosystem of eList code be loadable in CEDAR, right?
No, not exactly. No. Yeah. So he's asking is if all the Emacs Lisp code can be loaded into CEDAR. Not exactly. So I will have to transpilate the Emacs Lisp into Common Lisp. So it will be Common Lisp, but written as Emacs Lisp. So it will be.
Common Lisp is a great language in which you can do that.
Yes, because it's really also really similar to Emacs Lisp. So. Right.
Yeah, so I guess his last question was kind of similar to what I want to ask, but if you have to transpile, wouldn't that be, I don't know, it seems like if you had a tool to transpile it, maybe you can get it to work, but aren't there some like fundamental differences with like the data types that make it, like, you know, it wouldn't just be drop in, right? Because you still have that transpilation step. So is there, because I think I've seen like someone wrote an Emacs implementation in Common Lisp. Would it also make sense to do like, for example, what Guile Emacs is doing, and rather than transpiling, just maybe running it through an Emacs, like implementing Emacs Lisp in Common Lisp, and just, you can actually have a drop-in that way, or rather than running a transpiler?
Yeah, that can be also another approach. So I know Sabet's, I know that Sabet wrote a proofing concept package to implement all the differences, right? So the font in Emacs is different from the Common Lisp, and but I have a trick here. Is that Emacs have already a compatibility layer with Common Lisp, which is the package cl-lib. Well, yeah, we know how it is exactly, but that will. So I can use that to change the Emacs Lisp code to fit another. The types will be. It's a problem, the difference of types. But given that I want to achieve input-output, I don't necessarily need to implement the same way with a lot of things. But yeah, one of the things that Transpile will need to do, is to identify this kind of a mismatch. So I don't say that everything is going to be automatically. Probably with a lot of major modes, yeah, a lot of WE packages that uses the Emacs API or WE way, probably you need to hand change it.
More questions? Okay, thank you, Fermin.
Thank you.